Okay, so Wen, thanks for jumping on with me on Zoom to just catch up with you and find out, how your journey is going. And it's really odd because I had to stop and remember that it's 2 years ago that you came on the coaching with me. And for some reason, my mind is saying it can only have been a year, but then so much has happened this year. So it's 2 years ago, and I'm particularly interested to catch up with you now because what I experience commonly is that, people kind of like come out of a coaching or an event like UPW, Tony Robbins, and we come out, we're all excited and raring to go, which is great. But you don't see so many people later on down the road and follow up, and so many people just fizzle out on their journey. So it's interesting to have this conversation with you now, and also because you, of all people, you've known me for, well, it's over 10 years, isn't it? And you know a lot of my outlook on life, and yet you said you got so much value out of the coaching that you wish you started before. So I'm interested to pick that up. So let's just wind back a little bit to 2 years ago. What made you reach out to me for coaching at that point?
I wasn't in a very good place 2 years ago at all. I've been trying to do other avenues and it wasn't working. So I thought, it's got to be neat. I've got to have this coaching now. I've just got to get this coaching for my life sorted out. But the big problem was I found I couldn't communicate my feelings to people. Not so bad with the family because, family is like a different scenario. But in general, with people, I just couldn't express my feelings. And that was the worst thing. And looking back, I know the reason I couldn't do that. And the reason I couldn't express my feelings is because I was always afraid of what was going to come back at me from other people. So I'd always got this paradigm, I guess, from when I was young of being able to express my feelings and those feelings be accepted there on the spot. So I sort of got stuck in a groove all of my life. In this situation then, and it wasn't good because I realized I was people pleasing and other people were happy and their wishes were being met, but my happiness and my wishes, that was far from being met, so that was not okay.
And you said you dropped in something there that you had tried different things before, different processes. Can you just say what some of them were and, what the progress was, but where it still left you stuck, if you like? Can you recall any of that stuff?
Yeah, no problem at all. During my marriage, which was a long time ago now, I remember having counselling and I really did not enjoy that counselling. It didn't help me. I didn't enjoy the process. Not being able to speak up obviously was not going to help anyway. I didn't want to speak to a stranger about any personal issues. And then that sort of didn't work. So after that, I'd speak to friends, only really good, trusted friends I'd speak to, and I'd try and work my way through thinking they could help me. But looking back, that's really funny because my friends at the time, they couldn't sort their own lives out. They couldn't sort their own problems out. So it was like, how was I expecting all those years ago for my friends to be able to sort my life out? It basically wasn't going to happen. And then after that, in later years, with us having online mechanisms and everything, I started going online and looking at different people. Some of them really famous people. I even listened to a hypnotherapist and paid for a course from a hypnotherapist, which didn't help me properly in the end. I was looking at famous people that I really honour and thinking, well, they had problems. How did they get over their problems? But I likened it to having a first aid box in like seeking these people out because they got these problems, but in the majority of situations that I was listening to and the scenarios I was listening to, they'd tell you about the problems. Yes, they'd overcome, but it wasn't actually, there's no in-depth explanation as to how they'd overcome. So this first aid box that I talk about, it's like my answer was inside, but there was a padlock on it. and I couldn't open it to get the answers out to begin to help me in my situation. So I realised at the end of the day that my deep issue, it hadn't been unearthed, so I couldn't go any further forward from those avenues that I tried. They weren't the best avenues to go down.
That's really interesting. So you felt the answer was there, but the way that it was being taught or delivered was lacking that depth that allowed you to, you know, really kind of break through. So when you reached out to me, was there kind of there was a tipping point that said, I can't go on like this anymore? Was it something happened? Was it just a growing awareness for you that I'm fed up of this?
I wasn't in a good place. I really wasn't in a good place when I reached out to you, as you will remember. And it all came down to, I ended up in that situation that I was in once again because of my difficulties with the confidence to speak up,
Right.
basically. And I realised when I started my coaching with you that there were core bits of knowledge that I didn't know. And unless I discovered what these core bits of knowledge were, and I began to learn what I needed to know, how to communicate effectively, then I was never going to move forward and overcome the obstacles that I was faced with continually. And not only that, I realised I'd been sitting in judgment of myself for so many years. And I'd got a habit of sitting in judgment of other people as well. So that wasn't helping me. But I'm looking back as a youngster from that. I used to be the most happy-go-lucky youngster. My friends were amazed at me. I'm talking about probably pre the age of 9. I was full of confidence, speak up, enjoy life, totally at one with myself, little go-getter. And that's who I was as a person. But as time went on in my life, new conditioning came in due to my family situation and how I was treated by people in my family. And I realised I'd got stuck in this new conditioning as I became older.
Wow. So I'm eager to get into what in the process that we went through really helped you. But just to sum up that little bit, so it sounds really like you said you were having difficulty communicating with other people and really kind of, you know, speaking what you wanted to say as opposed to what you think people want you to say and how they want you to be. And that you kept running into that like a vicious cycle to a point where you couldn't take it anymore. Hence the pain, and that other things had got you so far, maybe it helped a little bit, but hadn't really got to the root of the issue for you. So that's a great sort of background picture. And moving on from that into the process that we went through, what was the key thing that really spoke to you that made you think, wow, I've really hit upon that core knowledge that you were referring to?
Well, I found that during my coaching, the root issue that I had was expertly defined by yourself in being that I couldn't speak up for myself. Not only was my communication a little bit stunted, I just literally couldn't speak up for myself. So once we'd uncovered that root problem, then we were moving forward from there, getting the core bits of knowledge into my head, as it were, to learn so that I could go forward. But at the end of the day, I learned some really valuable tools during the period I was being mentored by you. And I needed to use these tools. Once I'd learned them, it was great. The fantastic thing is I practiced them really well. And because I practiced them really well, since the coaching, if I'm ever finding now where I'm struggling with things that I used to struggle with before, like the communication and speaking up for myself, being scared of what would come back at me, or I was just not in a very good state, I can turn to any of these tools that I was taught during the coaching. Literally within seconds, I can recognise that I'm where I am. Yeah. Because I was taught to understand we've got to realise what we're thinking, because at the end of the day, your thinking affects your feelings. And then, you know, and a part of that with me was if I didn't speak up, it was me who was left not feeling good because the people pleasing thing.
Yeah.
So that's where it really helped me, because I could turn to my tools and literally within minutes, I could assess which tool I needed to use from the course, and I could sort out the problem that I got. Even if I wasn't in a very good state, I could get myself back into feeling really good, literally within minutes. So that was absolutely fantastic. I think that was key. That was absolutely key to helping me.
Yeah, I remember you talking a lot about that. And I remember, you know, when you talk about getting to the root of something, I remember one of the things around that is how, you know, not being able to speak up for yourself is also connected to the relationship you have with yourself, as opposed to the one that you have with other people. So we went into the loving yourself, the unconditional love toward yourself. How did that feel for you?
I think I got to a place where, fortunately, it was a great thing that happened, that I realised I wasn't in unconditional love with people anymore. And during my coaching, I went through various processes that got me back into the place of being able to unconditionally love other people again. And not only them, as you've just mentioned, myself. Because you taught me that I had to be in a good relationship with me to begin with, to be able to be in a good relationship with my outer world, as it were. Yeah. And I got back into a really good place. My confidence improved, much more relaxed when dealing with people, especially people that I don't know. Able to speak up for myself is one of those things. And I found that if I was wanting a certain thing and people began to come against me, and I started thinking to myself, oh, this isn't going to happen, is it? I became stronger, and more often than not now, I will go with how I feel and what I want. I actually prefer myself, so that's absolutely brilliant. And I learned the great secret of being present to your thoughts and your feelings, and now I'm very aware of what my thoughts and feelings are, or what they shouldn't be, as the case may be. But at the end of the day, our thinking produces our feelings, and I want my feelings to be really good. So I'm very, very aware of that now, and those tools that I had during the course were absolutely brilliant. And as you mentioned before we started this little section, you taught me to be in that relationship with myself. And I'm very aware of my communication with my own self. I didn't communicate with myself, to be honest, in years gone by, because it's not taught. And it was something that I needed to learn for myself. I know myself more as well now. So that's absolutely fantastic. I prefer myself. So I'm actually loving me, which is an absolutely brilliant thing that I can do for myself now. I'm at ease. I'm more relaxed. And even that conditioning from being a little kid, the formative conditioning, I feel like a lot of that has just been released from me now. Wow. So my self-esteem is like improved no end. I don't people please, which is like, yay. I please me.
180 for you.
I please me. So that's fantastic. Not only that, I've learned there has to be boundaries in place. I always let everybody just walk all over me type of thing. You know, if I please them, life will be easier. It doesn't work that way. So the biggest thing for me, which is absolutely fantastic, is I'm not codependent anymore. And that was a major shift. So I learned so many things that I never knew, and I've developed so well. And yes, I've continued in the vein of remembering, using my lessons. Otherwise, what's the point in going down that route if you're not going to continue it and adhere to it to literally help your life? My only wish is I'd have had this, years ago. But I believe the right person at the right time had to come along who could unearth what the problem was, get to that root of the problem and deal with it and help me step forward. As I said, I even had a hypnotherapy course from a really famous person. Didn't help. So I will be forever grateful. I will be forever grateful of having had the coaching. Thank you.
It's just so amazing just to listen. I mean, the interesting thing here is I've known you for so many years, so it's not just that listening to what you're saying now. I've actually watched that unfold in you, and I think, wow, because you mentioned the word codependent. You know, for those who don't know what that means, it's when you depend on other people or things for example, your happiness or whatever. There's a lot of that goes on, and the blind spot for so many people, as it was for me in my own journey, what is the relationship with ourselves and how that impacts everything. So watching you make that connection between the relationship with yourself and then how that impacts how you speak and express yourself, and then to free yourself from that codependency, it's a huge thing. Well done you, because, you know, it's not just about, you mentioned about the right person coming along. At the same time, it's about your readiness. You know, they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So there's kind of a couple of sort of dynamics in that. So an honor for me to be able to do that. And, you know, I never cease to be amazed when I hear somebody like yourself. You're not the first person to say this, but when they say that I've been to this or that person before, some are famous, some not, but not getting that depth of instruction that helps you connect the dots, because I thought they all did that. So when I hear it, it reminds me of something that's taken for granted, that it's, and I had this in nursing, you know, think positively. Well, what does that mean? You know, but that's the level of advice that tends to be given. So it's great piece of feedback for me, because the challenge for me is always to break it down in a way that people can connect the dots. And so it's a great feedback that you've been able to do that. I wanted to ask you one final thing, because you quite nicely answered the effects of going through that process. What does your life look like now in terms of what you're now looking to do with your life as a result of your own growth? Do you have new dreams, or have your current dreams taken on, they're just more crystallized? What is it looking like for you?
Well, I've had difficulties, as you know, over the years with some health issues. But I feel more confident to take control of what I can do now. And I'm looking forward to a great future, because I've got that confidence that's instilled in me. And there's so many avenues in life. No matter what you do, if you can't speak up for yourself and stand up for yourself, you're not really going to reach your desired goals, because that has to play a part in going forward in whatever avenue you decide to go down. So I've got a couple of ventures on the go at the moment, and I've got more confidence in what I'm doing now than I've ever had. Thank you.
My pleasure. You want to spill the beans and tell us, or is that a secret?
That's just something that's a little bit under wraps at the moment. Well, okay. I've done a around the world trip video I've put together. And that is great, and it's just overcoming different obstacles now in getting that out into the world to help people less fortunate than myself. It's a charitable thing. But even I'd never put anything together to even begin to try and do a video, but I found this program that I could use, and I've literally spent 3-4 months doing this, and I have to say I'm happy with what I've done.
Oh, great.
I think people are going to have value from it, because during COVID, goodness only knows when we'll get back to doing our travels. I've been a bit of a wanderer. And when I went around the world on my own, everybody was absolutely amazed that I did it on my own as a woman.
Yeah.
But then when people couldn't travel, I thought there must be people out there who, they want to go and do this traveling, but all the obstacles are in our way now to even go and travel to one country maybe. So I've just felt like I wanted to bless Joe Public all around the world in being able to see the natural 7 wonders of the world that I did from my viewpoint.
Yeah.
And yes, it's not perfect, because I didn't go around the world with a view to video footage and putting that out there. I just did it on my iPhone, which is far from perfect. But the way I've put it together, I think people are going to actually feel like they've been to see the 7 natural wonders of the world virtually. So that's one thing.
Oh, look forward to that
really
coming out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's it, isn't it? It's not about being perfect. It's about being real and authentic. As somebody said to me recently, the right moment to go for your dreams never comes round. And so, you know, given that all we have is this moment now, it's really what you do with those now moments. So I'm glad that you've done that. Really, really thrilled to witness, when the unfolding of your journey. It's been amazing to watch, not just as somebody going through that coaching, mentoring process with you, but also following up with you. I mean, we've spoken in the last 2 years, but actually following up and hearing a bit more in depth what's different for you on the inside now and how that's showing up on the outside. So that's really great. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me here.
You're very welcome, Nee. Ever grateful. Thank you.
My pleasure.